So a feature that's used in a few different places in Spry is this idea of a grouping expression. I mean, broadly, these let us pick different criteria to create groups of records and then treat those groups in some separated way. Comes up in quite a few places in Spry. It can be a little confusing the first time you see them. So today, I'm just going to show you a couple of ways that you can examine what's happening with grouping expressions, also visualize them and visualize some of the benefits of them. So a couple places they come up quite commonly inside our dependencies, in sequence dependencies. That's what we'll have a look at first. But they come up in a lot of other places as well. You might see them inside proximity constraints, or if you're working in design mode, some of our attribution features. But if we start here with this sequence dependency, this one's just designed to give us a simple top-down dependency that ensures that we remove material above before we remove material below. And we have this idea of a grouping expression. And what this particular grouping expression is being used for is creating vertical stacks of records, so the ones that are on top of each other. But if we look at what it's saying it's doing, just taking the text, which is going to be, the name of a pit for a record, the name of a strip, and the name of a source block. And it's just tying them all together in one string, separating them with periods, full stops. So what we can do with this is, we can take a copy of this and we can actually put that same or very similar formula in as an expression in our deposit table and have a look at what the actual string that's being written is. And then we can also go ahead and use that to filter by in an animation view. So if we come in here, add a new text string. Just going to have it be a calculated field. In my expression, paste that formula in. Now I have to make some slight adjustments. When we were looking at it in the dependency view, that formula uses this idea of source pit and source strip, which is telling it, to look in the source table. Now, because I'm making direct edits to my deposit table here, I don't need that reference. So I can go ahead and modify this slightly so it just says text of pit, text of strip, text of block. And if we just accept that and apply it, we can go ahead and look at what that's doing. So you'll see that the result of that expression in alpha strip 1 block 1 is just the name of the pit, which is alpha, then the full stop, S1 being the strip, full stop, block 1. So we just get these collections where underneath the same pit, strip, and block, they all end up with this same grouping expression being written. So I get the same result written across all of these records that are sitting here under the D seam. But because I don't have the seam in my grouping expression, if I go down and look under E, I've actually got the exact same thing written in here. And so we can visualize this. In an animation view. So under our filters now in animation view, we can directly access fields in our deposit table. So if I go on here, turn on deposit filtering, and then for my source field, I pick this grouping expression. What I get returned to me down here is the grouping expression and then the number of solids that it's found that fit that same grouping expression. So just for a bit of clarity, it's going to hide my destination solids. You see as we come through here, turn these on. So each one of these lines represents a different grouping expression, and because of the way we've set it up with that grouping expression just being based on on pit, strip, and block, we get the vertical stacks of records that are within the same pit, strip, and block. So that's what's being returned by those grouping expressions. And then when we apply our dependencies, that's what we're doing, is we are looking top down through all of these records. And because we're not considering, the seam or the bench there in our groupings, we go all the way down through all the seams. So what we can look at, we can turn on our annotate dependencies feature. So underneath here. So the only dependency I've got turned on is that dig top down dependency. I can choose how many levels up or down I want to look. So if I go here and increase this to 10, we see these dependencies. The visualizer, wherever I am, it's going to look 10 levels up. These are sort of drawn through centroids. So what we're seeing here, where it looks a little bit difficult to visualize there's actually a few small coal centroids that are not all sitting in exactly the same centroids in the vertical stack as the others. And pull one of these larger groupings out. You see we're mostly looking directly top down. So if I want to change my visualization so that I'm seeing successors instead of predecessors, I can switch this around here. Still looking at the same dependency rule, but now when I select a record, I'm seeing 5 levels down what its successor dependencies are. So just a couple ways there that we can visualize grouping expressions inside Spry. We can have a look at what the actual text strings being created are. And, now that we can access those deposit fields in our animation view, we can switch them on as filter expressions too.